You're listening to Tutor Time with Mallory, and now for your host, Mallory Latouche.
And welcome back to Tutor Time with Mallory. Today I have the honor of interviewing Mr. Scott Lassiter. How are you doing today, Scott?
I am wonderful, Mallory. Thank you so much for letting me come on and talk to you, have some real conversation about what's going on in education and my world.
Thank you. What is your education background?
So I'm a local guy. I'm here in Wake County, and I'm one of those folks. And Wake County's experienced a tremendous amount of growth and a lot of outsiders coming in, people from all over the country to take some great jobs we have. But I actually was born and raised here in Wake. Went to Apex, which was a small town back then, Apex Elementary, middle, and high school. Then went to North Carolina State University, where I earned my undergraduate degree in political science with a concentration in secondary social studies education. That was really to be a civics teacher. Taught U.S. history and psychology, North Carolina history, civics, and then went back to North Carolina Central University when I decided I wanted to get into educational administration and earn what's called a master's of school administration. So in North Carolina, our teachers have to be educated at a bachelor's level. That's a 4-year degree. Our principals have to be educated at a master's level. So that's an additional 2 or 3 years of master's studies to understand what all is involved in being a school administrator. So that's assistant principal or principal. And currently, I've gone back to North Carolina State University, go Pack, I can't stay away, to earn my doctorate in education administration. So that actually leads to a superintendent's licensure. It's a degree called an Ed.D. So that's about 4 years where you go in and you really do some intensive study about what it takes to be a district level school administrator. And you just sort of learn more about the things that we learned about at that bachelor's and master's level. So I've got a couple of classes left. Believe it or not, it's gone by quickly. I'll graduate in 2023, have to write a dissertation, lengthy document, but some great professors that are helping with that.
Well, what was it like attending NC State University with honors in political science?
So, I've always been interested in politics. I've been interested in government. And I knew, really, I went into college thinking, well, I'm either going to be an attorney or a teacher. And I wanted to make sure that I added that option to be a teacher. And I think that's really, it was almost like a double major. So I got the political science program, but then also got the necessary prerequisites and the necessary coursework and student teaching experience to become a teacher. So that was great. I was busy. Obviously, when I was at NC State, I was involved in student government, trying to do all the college things as well. Then those of us that go to school to be teachers in sort of the traditional program, one of our semesters, we're fully removed from the university essentially, and we're sent out into a public school. In my case, it was Middle Creek High School, where you student teach. And you student teach, in that case, I was student teaching civics to juniors and seniors in high school, while I was just a few years older than them. And I don't know if you remember back then, we had something called the swine flu. And the swine flu came out, and my supervising teacher got sick with the swine flu. And you had to quarantine when you had that, take so many days off. And we had a substitute in the classroom, but also I was sort of leading the lessons. And that was really good for me because you learn by doing, and that's what I got an opportunity to do. With their support. But it was a great time. Being at NC State as a young person, undergraduate, was wonderful. It was busy. It's hard work, obviously, for anybody that's young and watching, thinking about going to college. You really just have to be driven and self-determined. There's nobody there to wake you up in the morning. There's nobody there to make sure you get your homework done. You've got plenty of support, but you have to ask for it and learn to advocate for yourself.
What was it like balancing having honors in political science and at NC State and secondary social studies education?
Yeah, so a little bit about that. That sort of goes back to, I existed in 2 different colleges, right? There was the College of Humanities at NC State and Social Sciences. That's where my political science program was housed. And we did a lot of work around government. We did a lot of work around some history. We did a lot of work around world governments and all that kind of stuff, and sort of the understanding of the political structures, not just in the United States, but abroad. And then I'd have to sort of switch gears and learn how to teach in the College of Education. So I spent a lot of time, had to split my time there. The College of Education talked about the pedagogy of teaching and what does it mean to make a good lesson plan? What does it mean to engage students? So sort of learned the content in one school, and that would have been the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. And that's where my degree was conferred from. But then the College of Education taught the classes about how do you actually teach what you know. And those are two important skills and two important delineations when we talk about education. You can have somebody that's a real content specialist, but they may not be a very good teacher. And then sometimes you can have somebody that can teach very well, but they may not know a whole lot about the content. So the ideal is somebody that can do both, and that's what North Carolina State University tried to train us to do.
Coming out of college, what was it like getting your first teaching job at elementary school and working way up to the high school level?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, my first teaching job was in a high school, and it was back at the high school that I graduated from 4 years ago. So that was unique. That was very interesting. Being somebody that was from that community and knowing a lot of the families that I was teaching, and also being a young high school teacher, it was tough. Frankly, the first year teaching, I tell young people going in the teaching profession, is going to be your hardest because you're just not fully self-sure of what you're doing. You've never done these things before. Oftentimes you have veteran teachers and you have folks that can be intimidating when you walk in, and there are mentorship programs that are set up and all that kind of stuff, but there's no substitute for experience. So when I meet a new teacher that's just coming out of college and getting their first job, I always tell them, you owe it to yourself to try it for more than just 1 year, because I actually still know some of my former students and contact them, and we're in touch. And sometimes I feel like I have to apologize. You know, it was a good education. I did the best I could, but I know I can teach better now, being about 12 years in, than I certainly could the first year. But we have to start somewhere. And I had a lot of support, but it was definitely a lot of responsibility. And our young people that are coming out of college and going into the teaching forces, it really is important that veteran teachers are there to support them, because they're going through a lot of change and a lot of self-discovery in what their own teaching style is.
How did you obtain your master's degree in school administration while teaching?
Sure. So that was tough. It was night school, really. And I would go and work all during the day and teach North Carolina history. So seventh and eighth grade history at the time in a middle school. And then after that, usually I would go home, maybe grab a bite to eat, and then drive to Durham and spend at least 2 nights a week there in Durham in classes, working with other teachers that were also working towards their master's degree in school administration. So that was a lot to juggle. At the same time, I'd been elected to serve on the town council of Apex. So I was very busy. I was also just getting married at the time. And it really came down to time management. It's amazing what you can do if you set your mind to it and you block your time off in your days and you really work to maximize and make sure you're not wasting any time. Part of that program was an internship. So you have to spend a year working under a current principal to earn your principal's licensure. And that was a great experience. I went in and worked that internship as if it was a job. And there were a lot of times where I was working and I wasn't. You do get paid for that internship, but I was working a lot more hours, doing a lot more than a lot of interns do. And it paid off at the same school that I did my internship there, and that was at Durant Road Middle School. And that was I know you're going to ask about that momentarily, but that was a huge honor.
What was the feeling like when you were appointed the middle school assistant principal for Apex Middle School?
Yeah. So it was actually Durant Road Middle School. I had attended Apex, and my first teaching job was at Apex High. But at Durant Road Middle, I was probably, if not the youngest, one of the youngest secondary school assistant principals in the Wake County Public School System. So it was a lot of responsibility. I believe I was 26 at the time, maybe 27, and supervising folks that had taught longer than I had been alive. And like I said, I had a lot to prove. And what I had to prove was that I was capable, that I was competent, that I could actually offer them something. And for a lot of our veteran teachers, what they needed was support. A lot of the job of an assistant principal is ensuring that your teachers have the tools that they need. So the feeling was one of a lot of pride. I had known that I'd wanted to be an assistant principal for a very long time, or an administrator, and working towards that goal and seeing it happen. Because how assistant principals are named, at least in our school district, is a principal makes a recommendation. So my principal at the time that I'd worked for under as an intern, she made the recommendation when a vacancy happened at that school to appoint me. But then the school board has to look at it and vote. And you are really expected to hold yourself to the highest standards of the school system and to be a manager, a leader in the school system. And when they voted and approved me, I got a call that night from the superintendent's office, and they said, "Well, it's done. You were approved. Congratulations." And that sort of started that. And you are first given a 2-year contract. Administrators in the school districts in Wake or North Carolina receive their first 2-year contract, and that's sort of a probationary contract. And they see how well you do over those 2 years. And a lot of folks don't get a contract renewal. I was fortunate enough to have contract renewal, and then it was extended by 4 years. And then from now on, assuming your job performance is up to snuff, you get another 4-year contract. So I'm on my third contract, but my second 4-year contract as a school administrator.
What is it like going back to get your doctorate in public school leadership?
That was something I really didn't do. My expectation was I would be an assistant principal, at some point get promoted to be a principal. But I had a lot of folks encourage me to do it. In particular, a former principal that I worked with, and she really saw something in me. And she was retired at the time, but she came back and did some consulting and interim work. She said, "Scott, you've got to do this." Then I also had a acquaintance that worked with my wife, and we were talking one afternoon, and he was an attorney, and he said, "Have you ever thought about getting your doctorate?" And I said, sort of poo-pooed the idea. And he said, you can, and it will help you going forward. It'll help you broaden your horizons. It'll help you in your current job. And he sort of asked me, challenged me. He said, "What are you waiting for? If you know you can do it, if you can, then why wouldn't you?" And so I said, "Well, I'm going to apply." And I'll tell you, I was scared to death that I was going to get told no. I think a lot of times we struggle with fear of failure. And I worked on my application and I put it together, and I thought it was a pretty good application. And I sent it in, and I got selected. It's pretty selective, pretty tough selection process. Had to take a test, had to take a graduate aptitude test. And how long has it been since I took a standardized test? So you go in and you have to go sit behind the computer and all this stuff in your scores. It's kind of like an SAT for folks going back to graduate school. But long story short, I was accepted into the program, and COVID hit. So the program sort of transitioned. It was supposed to be an in-school program at North Carolina State. It transitioned into an online program. We've done all of our coursework online through Zoom and Moodle Classroom and different other online learning platforms. And that's not necessarily my favorite way to learn. So that's a little bit of a hurdle. I'm kind of type A and like to be active and moving around and energized and around other people. I'm definitely an extrovert. So sitting behind a screen for a couple of hours or 3 hours a night can sometimes be taxing. But it really, again, it comes down to time management. It comes down to being committed. And we're in a cohort model. So that means all of it's either assistant principals, principals that are going to do this doctorate together. And we're in the same class with the same 18 of us. And we all sort of support one another and learn from each other. We're from different schools, different counties, right here in central North Carolina. And we've got some great professors here. We've got 2 former state school superintendents that lead the program. Actually, it's 3. And we just got a world of talent. We get to hear from former governors and legislators, and it really is that doctoral program is preparing, like I say, preparing us to be a superintendent. So it's giving us I always tell people, teachers need to be able to see inside their classroom and know everything that's going on inside their classroom. Principals should be able to do that for a school. You have to pull all the way up, and we call it kind of a balcony view. And then superintendents, from what I'm learning and understanding, they need to be able to do that for an entire school district. And some of our school districts are very, very big. Look at Wake County Public Schools. We have over 160,000 students in over 100 schools. So to be able to manage and have an understanding of what's going on there, you really have to be on top of it.
What's the feeling you have starting a family education foundation?
Great question, Mallory. So this education foundation really came out of a need that I saw. The nature of the current school that I have had the opportunity to start, and I'm currently the assistant principal of, we're an alternative school. So we serve students really as a temporary placement as they've been suspended from other middle schools in our school district. And though we are tremendously well funded and we are supported by the school district, there are some things that you can't use state funds or government funds for. And in most schools, a PTA would pick up that situation. You would pick up those expenses, whether those be thank you breakfasts for teachers or scholarships for students that need to go, that are interested in playing sports outside of the schools, or it could be incentives for students. So I decided and did some research that I wanted to start my own 501c3 nonprofit. So went through and registered it. And I have some business experience. I've founded an LLC before. But usually this is a process. A lot of times attorneys get involved in, and you have different agencies. I just decided I was going to do it myself. I could figure out how to do it. And got some consultation with some other folks, and I really wanted it to be sort of a legacy thing. And we founded the foundation. We started it with some money that we contributed, myself, my wife, my mother, and then we sort of found other community sponsors that were interested in giving money that we could use to support. And our primary focus is supporting at-risk kids in Wake County. So those are students that are coming from low-income households. They're having academic or behavioral difficulties. So we're really trying to work to meet their needs.
What is Lassiter Education Foundation?
Yeah, so at our core, a family foundation that looks for causes that are worth supporting in our community. And those causes, as I say, could be anything from paying for a student to go to a basketball camp. They could be rewarding a student with a stipend who has completed community service work for a neighbor or an elderly community member or disabled community member that can't really afford to pay them to do work around the house. Or they could be working on a community project, cleaning up litter in their neighborhood. And we want to incentivize that. Our hope is that by helping people do positive things, helping young people do positive things, it leads to better citizenship. And we're a completely volunteer organization. We have no overhead expenses. All of our funding that we do receive, whether it be from civic organizations or other nonprofits or straight from our own pockets, goes right back to the community, which I think is really unique. A lot of times organizations have expenses they have to pay, and no slight on them. but we've just decided this is going to be our volunteerism and our way to give back. So we encourage folks to go to Lassiter Education Foundation.org. There is an opportunity there to sign up and request assistance. There's an opportunity there for folks in the area to, if you're interested in contributing. But I'll tell you, our biggest focus right now is getting some of the funds that we have in the bank to places and to people that need them. And we're really looking to make that one-on-one gift to deserving folks that can provide them not just a handout, but instead a leg up that helps them build positive habits as they grow up.
What do you provide at Lassiter Education Foundation?
So the biggest thing we provide is that direct financial assistance. And I think we talked a little bit about that. It looks different in every case, but we have a little saying where we say, if there's a need, we'll find a way. And obviously, we are limited in what we can do, but we work very hard to get assistance on the ground where it's needed and where it can do the most good.
What is it like working with your mother and wife?
It's a lot of fun. You know, obviously we're a close family, and our when we have our board meetings, you know, they're usually over a meal, and we all have the same goal and the same vision when we went into this. So one of the neat things is that we have these 3 sets of eyes where we're in different generations, and where we can see different areas of need and have different thoughts. So it's a lot of fun, and it's a good family. It's a good family.
What are some future plans for Lassiter Education Foundation?
You know, we want to maintain. Certainly looking at growth. Happy to think about scaling it. I would love to be able to give more and work with some local governments or some other local charitable organizations, nonprofit, to really identify deserving youth in the community, but then also to raise the funds to provide for and to give them access to those extracurricular activities.
What is the process like creating a foundation?
Yeah, very interesting. So you have to go through, you have to register it takes a little bit of seed money, a little bit of startup money, but you have to go through a process where you register with the Secretary of State's office as an entity, as a corporation. You have to create your bylaws. You have to name your officers. Then you have to work with the United States IRS to get, and that first part just creates a nonprofit. And there are such things as nonprofits or charitable organizations that don't have tax deductible status. That 501c3 designation that the IRS gives says that they've looked through your organization. You have proven to them, and they trust you enough that they want to give. When people give to us, they get to take that, deduct that from their taxes. And we don't have to pay taxes in order to, we don't have to pay taxes on things that we purchase or give out. So there's a little bit of red tape there, but it's really set up to make sure that people that understand the rules and regulations of a foundation or a nonprofit are the ones that are running.
How did you know that you wanted to create a foundation in the education system?
Yeah, so that goes really back to the need. We just saw a need. We saw a need with a lot of my students where they were struggling to, they would be very concerned about how they were going to pay for certain small things that, whether it be, like I said, registration fee to a camp, or we've sent students to computer camp. That's one of the things we're most proud of, because we really believe that a child's financial status, you know, their parents' financial status should not keep them from accessing really good extracurricular programming.
What advice would you give someone looking into creating their own education foundation?
I would tell folks to start with the why, and that's a pretty good educational concept. Start with why you want to do it, and then build everything about what you want to help, and really go out from there. And keep it simple at first. Realize it doesn't have to take a whole lot of money to begin with, because when you don't have overhead expenses, you can do a lot of good with a few $100s.
What advice would you give future teachers looking to pursue a career in the education system?
Well, you're going to hear a lot of negativity. You're going to hear people say that you don't make any money. You're going to hear people say that the kids can be disrespectful. You're going to hear people say, well, don't do it. I would advise anybody that thinks they want to go into education to try it. Spend some time substitute teaching, spend some time reading about education, spend some time watching movies about education. Be around the young people, get in the schools and volunteer. Because if you have a heart for it, yes, they're tough days, but they're going to be a lot of days where you look and you say, you know what, I made a difference today. And I would have done that for free, regardless of it being a job. And that's really important because it is a good way. It still is a way to make a living. It's still a good way to make a living. You're still making a difference in the world. And I consider it a noble profession, just like being a nurse or a firefighter or a police officer or a member of our military. These are public service jobs, and you're a part of something bigger than just going to work every day and punching a clock.
Thank you so much, Scott. It was an honor to be with you today.
Yes, thank you, Mallory. Good luck with everything. Stay in
Thank
touch
you.
and let me know if there's anything I can do to help you.
Thank you.